Yassus and welcome to Vasilis Garden, folks. Well, it is autumn, folks, and I'm preparing my autumn garden beds here. These beans, these climbing beans are on their last legs. We've had about 4 or 5 harvests from them. And in the meantime, I'm going to prepare the bed here so I can plant out my next season's crop. And today we're planting broad beans. That's right, nice and early. Beginning of autumn, anytime in autumn, so the sooner you get them in, the quicker they'll jump out of the ground. These ones are called Aqua Dolce. I've got 3 packets in here that I'm going to plant in this bed here, and I'm going to wait for these climbing beans to finish. So what I'm doing is putting 3 rows. 1 row here, 1 row on the other side, and then a little bit later in the middle, hopefully not too much later. These are almost on their last legs. We just harvested about 2 days ago. There's not a lot of bean plants here basically because we lost 2 or 3 climbers out of them. But we did get about 4 good sized bowls of harvest out of them, and there's a few more there. I think because of the weather turning so much, these really won't do that well, and I'm really concerned about those ones there from Sam. They're kicking on, but something's getting in there and eating them, and I reckon the birds, it's the birds that are getting into them. But anyway, they're starting to kick on. Now, before I go too far with this, I want to show you the soil here. This is the old soil that we brought in about a year or 2 ago, and it was the stuff that actually destroyed all my gardens because I brought about 6 cubic meters of this stuff in. And have a look at it. It's not soil, it's just dirt. Look, I'm trying to dig it up by hand. This is, you know when I tell you, if you can't get your hands in your soil, how do you expect the root system of your plants to grow? So this stuff, even though we hydrate it, is hard as a rock on the bottom part. Now, I'm not going to dig it over to loosen it up, but what I'm going to do instead is I'm top dressing it with our cocoa pith. This is the stuff there now. This has been hydrated, so this is already mulched and moistened for you. It's not one of those compacted blocks that you buy that you've got to hydrate for half an hour to get it to break up and become loose. We actually hydrate this already for you with a little bit of seaweed in it, and when you get it, it's got a bit of moisture like that in it. But look at the beautiful thing about it, it just breaks away straight away. So no matter how much moisture's in the actual mulch itself or the cocoa pith, it's still very loose and friable. You can see how easy it is to spread. Now, the aim is for this to work its way through once we activate the micro life in here, the microbiota in the soil, to start breaking down into the soil underneath here. Well, that's the theory. Now it's time to put it to practice. Snail. Hey, Cara, catch, catch, catch. Now, so what we're doing here is first adding our cocoa pith, a layer of it, in about 3 inches or so, something like that, about 50 mil to 70 mil thick. That's going to work its way through to the bottom soil, the lower part of the soil, which is really poor. Next, yeah, that's the compost. It's heavier than the planting mix. I'm going to spread. Now this is about a 3 metre bed, and I'm spreading, well, it's about 3 square metres, so I'm putting a bag of compost on top per square metre. Have a look at this stuff. This is to die for. Look how good that is. That is a beautiful compost, folks. Organically made, naturally. It's been, you know, in windrows for months on end, so it can break down all the leafy greens that go into it. Now this stuff here, we're going to go out and film the site that makes it, so bear with us. We're going to organise a day where we can go and see the processing plant so you can all see how it comes in and how it comes out at the end. Oh, that's what you want. Big chocolate cookies. Oh, I love that. Love it, love it, love it. Just break that up a little bit because you don't want it that big in the garden, but little bits like that is fine. So 1 bag per square metre. You can basically plant into this stuff directly, but that's not what we're going to do. We're going to do one better than that. This garden bed over the last year or 2 has sunken. You can see how much it's sunken on that side there. We were practically about, 50 mil from the top, below the tops level of the bean, and it's literally sunk at 150 mil, 6 inches. That's over the course of a year or 2, probably closer to 2 years, because I really allowed this to subside because the soil underneath was just terrible. So what you want to do is when you're topping it up, try and get it up as high as possible. Now, we're going to go 1 more layer on top of this, because again, what will happen over time is as the plants grow and they suck up all the nutrients with the moisture, that nutrient comes from somewhere. It just doesn't come from thin air, and it comes out of the life in the soil. So when you activate the soil, you get the microbiome growing and activate it really well. Well, as the plants draw it up, the soil starts to deplete, and that's where you get that sinking effect happening. And that's a good sign, because that means your garden bed's alive. Oh, I could do with probably half a bag more, but I've got half a bag of extra planting mix, so I'll just top that up on top. Now, you don't have to use your hands, put gloves on, you know, bare hands. I'm a bit of the old school type, so cover your fingers with those rubber gloves if you like. Now we're topping this up with our planting mix. This is the stuff that everybody should be getting into their garden. This is what we call all-in-one planting mix. Basically grouse for pots and planters, raised garden beds, and just normal garden beds as well. It's got everything in there. I'm looking for worms. No worms. See, now we're nearly up to the top. Have a look at this. So you want to get it like that. Now we have to put mulch on top as well. And remember, this will sink down a little bit once we add water, because we're not compacting it. See, when I press down, it does sink. And what have you noticed here? I haven't dug anything in yet, folks. I've literally just spread it one on top of the other and let it go. Now this bag's been opened. I found one here lying around. I don't know how long it's been here, but it is relatively dry. So it's dehydrated because it's been out in the sun baking. Just the top section, it's kind of a bit lumpy. It's still our planting mix. And look at that, once you hydrate it, get rid of the lumps, they break up straight away. There's nothing in them really. So there's nothing to be deterred about. So if you buy the bag and you store it and you forget to use it for at least 2 or 3 months, don't despair. All you need to do is break it open, spread it out, and just hydrate it. Have a look at that, hey? Look how much we've raised the bed from where it is there on that side to this side here. That's at least, like I said, about 150 mil, almost 200, I reckon. These sleepers are, what are they, 200 deep? Yeah, they are. So it's at the bottom of that top sleeper, the existing bed, and we're nearly to the top of the sleeper now with all the mix on top. And that's what you need when it comes to putting in new plants. You want that depth in the mix so that they've got a decent amount of space to grow their root ball in. And they're going to work their way through the planting mix into the compost, and underneath we've got the cocoa for the drainage, just in case it holds a bit of water. And that cocoa is going to work its way through, because as we're watering it, all the nutrients and the microbes are going to get flushed down into the base where the old soil is, and slowly over time we're going to activate that old soil. As you can see there, it's literally lifeless. There's nothing in it. So that there is going to come to life. We're not going to see it happen because we're going to have it covered, but we'll notice it on top as the plants grow. Broad beans, we plant, unlike your normal climbing beans, whereas Sam has told us 5 beans and only keep 3 of the strongest ones. With broad beans, we only plant 2 per hole, and generally space them about 50 centimetres apart, because as they grow, they really do open up, and they'll take up a good 3/4 of a metre in space in diameter. Now, because they're 50 centimetres apart, that doesn't mean they'll be too congested. They'll actually hold each other up. But on the outside, as they grow, they will get up to about 6 feet tall. That's almost 2 metres. If not, some of them will get past 2 metres. And I've seen some of those photos that have come in, people sharing their broad beans, how big they are. What you'll need to do is tie them up. Now, I'm going to use this mesh that we got here, the wall here, as part of the framework, and bring a string around, put a stake in this corner, and another one in the middle, and another one on the end, and tie them up nice and tight. So that's their leaning post. The rope's going to act as a barrier for them to stop them from falling over, because as they grow and they produce their pods, they get top heavy. So now all we've got to do is mark the space 50 centimetres apart, and I'm using the mesh here. So my first one's going to be right there, and another 50 centimetres apart is going to be right there. So that's about 20 centimetres, I reckon 20 or 25. I'm just having a guess by eye. So we'll be putting 2 here, 2 there, 1, 2 centimetres, and I've come in. Now this is a 2 metre wide bed, so it's about 40 odd centimetres, or 35, 40, yeah, in there. By the time we get to the middle, it's close to 50. I mean, you don't have to be 100% 50, 40 is okay, 45, right? So I'm going to put 1 row here down the middle, like this. That's 1, 2, 1, 2, and we've got more in here. This should be enough to do this whole row. 3, 4, and we've got 1 extra, so we'll put 2 on the end there, and we'll stick 1 more in the middle there. We'll make that 3. So there's going to be 3 rows, one here, one in the middle, and one on the other side. Simply open a hole, drop them in, and cover it over. Open a hole, drop them in. Simple as that. Nothing fancy. Make sure you keep it nice and straight. Now I could have gone a little bit further out from the middle to plant there, but I need them to have a bit more space on the framing, otherwise I'll be staking it out here. So there's another one there, buried, and we're done. What we're going to do now is give them a good water. What I like to do first is hydrate the soil, get a bit more moisture into it. You'll see it collapse under the weight of the water, because as it hydrates it gets heavy. So as it sinks, and we need a bit more hose here. Thanks, mate. There we go. So once I've hydrated it, what I like to do next is go over it with our Liquid Gold and Eco Butch. So the Eco Butch is our biostimulant, and that just activates the life in the soil. It just brings it to life. You know, the microbiota in the soil will just love that. And the Liquid Gold, well, that's just the added bonus. That's our seaweed solution flagship. It's organically certified, folks. For those who are following that path and trail, they're both organically certified, so you feel safe to use them in your garden as often as you need to. Now, before we go over it with our liquid solution, you saw me just watering it. Now, I reckon I put about maybe 15 litres of water over these 3 square metres, which is not a lot of water. Now, this is quite loose and fluffy. Let's see how wet it is underneath. It's not too bad. It's not as wet as it needs to be, but then again, 15 litres isn't a lot. So remember that, folks. It's actually quite damp on top in the first inch. So this really needs probably 50 litres of water. See how it soaks in straight away? Watch it, look, it's just disappearing. It's got to hydrate all the way through. Now, let's just do it a little bit more. Let's do a quick test here, all right? We won't disturb the beans where we've planted, but let's just hydrate this whole area properly. Now, I reckon we'll get about the way I'm going, and if we're timing this in real time, this would probably be another 10 litres almost by now that I've done. We'll go for another 10. Okay, now we're going to dig right down and see how far down the moisture's travelled. We know that the cocoa pith is moist, but look at that. Look how fast it's going. That is fantastic. That's what you want to see, just soaking right through. But we want to see if it's actually quite damp, not just moist, but damp deep below, through the compost and into the cocoa pith. And I can see from here, I'm not sure if you can tell where you're watching, but this has sunken somewhat and compacted a little bit by comparison to from this section onwards. This area here hasn't quite sunken yet as much because I haven't hydrated that side. All right, so I reckon that's at least another 10-15 litres we've just added over this 1.5 square metres. Is that enough water to get right through down to the base? And we're talking about 100 mil in depth to 150 mil in depth. All right, let's test this area here. Here we go. Yeah, look at that. You see the moisture? You can see how damp it is already there. All right, so we've gone through the planting mix. Now we've hit the compost. Look, it is damp. That is moist as. So we've got I'm actually now touching the bottom of where the old soil is. And there is moisture right through. See that on my hand? It is quite damp. So that would have been approximately 30 litres of water that I added in 1.5 square metres. So that's about the amount of water. That's 3 watering cans in 1.5 square metres. So 10 litres per square metre, folks. That's what we've just done here on average. Okay, I've added just some more now. So this one needs another 20 litres at least on this side, 2 watering cans. And that's the sort of amount of water you need to use to hydrate the bed right through. You don't have to do that all the time, providing it holds its moisture and you've got mulch on top. And that's what we've got to apply next. So we've hydrated the soil. We know we've got the moisture in there. Next is adding the mulch and then hydrating that as well. 20 to 40 mil. You know what's going to happen with all the wonderful, organic matter that we've added here now. These beans are going to have another burst of life. We're going to end up having another flush of flowers and pods growing on those. So I've done half the bed. This is about 9 litres, this watering can. I'm going to give it a good soak. I'm actually going to use it all up on this to get this to go right through, and that will activate the life in the soil and just stimulate growth, you know, bacteria growth, good bacteria. And these will get a bit of a feed too. Now I've only done half the bed and I've got to do the other half as well, but this is what it should look like when you finish. Again, mulch is coming on top and then another application of fertilizer, liquid fertilizer on top to hydrate the mulch and activate that as well, folks. So if you've got a garden bed that's looking worse for wear from the summer crop, maybe it's time to pull it out. Get it ready. If you've got some poor soil, if you've already got some planting mix in there, just add a little bit of superfood and black grit on top. As you know, I didn't do that here because it's already in our planting mix. Then knock yourself out with your broad beans and your autumn winter crop. Check out our website, Vasili'sGarden.com, and for anybody who needs any of our products, rest assured we're getting it out to a garden centre near you. Check out our stockist page on our website for the nearest location, garden centre that is, and if there isn't one there, send us an email and we'll be sure to chase them up for you. Vasili'sGarden.com for everything you need every day. From me, Vasili, Maresi.